Hello, I'm Sue Trumanat from the Cranky Factory, and I'm honored to be presenting today at the International Panorama Council Conference of 2021, and I'm here to talk about and show you some of the Rockland Panoramas. I thought we'd first get oriented with a map of the New England states of the U.S. We are here at the New Bedford Whaling Museum, or that's where we would be if we weren't dealing with this current situation. Their whaling moving panorama was painted in 1848. If you travel 5 hours north of that, you will be in Rockland, Maine, and that's where the Rockland Panoramas were painted in 1850. And about 1 hour south of New Bedford is Providence, Rhode Island. We're going to take a quick detour there to learn about a couple moving panoramas that were painted in the 1870s. The Rockland Panoramas, like I said, were painted in 1850. We're going to be seeing two of them, one of the waterfront and one of the main street. And they were oil painted on cotton fabric. They're both 35 inches high and approximately almost 50 feet in length. And they are housed at the Farnsworth Art Museum in Rockland. The artists were Samuel Fuller, who at the time was 24 years old, and Ebenezer Finch, who was 61. They were both portrait painters, and Samuel Fuller was also a minister. And he was interviewed in 1904 by the Rockland Gazette, and so I thought I'd read some of that interview to you so you can hear in his own words how these paintings came to be. I was sojourning at the city of Rockland in the summer of 1850 as a portrait painter, and one day Mr. Finch, with whom I had no previous acquaintance, came to town, also a portrait painter. Rockland did not at that time afford sufficient work for two, and Mr. Finch suffered terribly from want. He appealed to me, who was as poor as himself. Having great sympathy for the dear old man, I suggested the panorama and immediately started to accomplish it. And then he goes on to say, after the paintings were completed, Mr. Finch insisted his own inability to exhibit the panorama without my help, and much to my own expense and trouble, after doing the painting without compensation, I consented to help him out. So visited Fox Islands, Camden, Thomaston, and Warren. When finding it inexpedient to go farther, I declined and took up my leave of the enterprise. Up to that time, I think the thing was financially profitable, but the old gentleman refused to continue. Ebenezer Finch also exhibited the panoramas in his studio, and he charged admission, but eventually interest waned. He gave the panoramas to the owner of the hotel to help settle his bill, and he moved to New York to raise chickens. But it's wonderful that the paintings survived and that they stayed in Rockland, because they're a historic treasure trove of information for that time and place. How were the panoramas exhibited? Well, that's an interesting question, because when I first saw them, I immediately assumed they were exhibited as a moving panorama because of the shape of them, 3 feet high, 50 feet in length, because of that time and place. The 1850s on the east coast of the U.S., there were many moving panoramas touring up and down the coast, and also because of that topic, the waterways. That was a very popular moving panorama topic. But then, after learning more and talking with historians who are close to the paintings, I learned that there is not evidence confirming either way if they were hung on the wall or if they were cranked as a moving panorama. And I can see the other side of this, that it would be much less expensive to simply hang them on the wall. And we know these two artists were of limited means, and it would also be much easier to hang them on the wall than learning the whole skill set of how to exhibit as a moving panorama. So perhaps someday more information will come to light, but regardless of how they were shown in the 1850s, I decided to show them to you as a moving panorama. But before I do that, we're going to take a quick detour to Providence, Rhode Island. In the 1870s, the Excursion View Company was running steamboat tours up and down the waterways from Providence to Block Island and back up again. And they commissioned the creation of this very unique souvenir, very expensive souvenir as well. A moving panorama box that held 2 scrolls. So one painting was of the eastern shore of the tour, and then the other painting was going the western shore, going back up again. And this illustration is from the 1879 patent. It was the printing procedure that they used was patented, and I thought that this box was so cool, and I thought it would be fun to show the Rockland Panoramas to you in this special box created for 2 scrolls. So I'm going to stop right here, and I'll show you the box. So I wanted to show you the replica of the box that held the excursion views of Narragansett Bay and Block Islands. You see it has 2 viewing windows. You can get into it and load the scrolls from the top. It has a lid that comes off. It has 4 cranks. Isn't this just so cool? I love it. I learned about this from the book Illusions in Motion, written by Professor Erkki Huhtamo, which some of you know him. And then I learned from Professor Russell Potter, who some of you know, that there is one of these on display at the Providence Athenaeum, and you can look on their website. You can see a picture of it, and you can actually go visit it. We're going to start with part of the waterfront panorama. The original paintings are 35 inches high. These are digital printouts, printed out to be 7 inches high, so they're much smaller than the original paintings. And we know from the interview with Samuel Fuller that he did the sketches and then he gave them to Ebenezer Finch to finish. So in the 1850s, the Rockland area had 12 shipyards, and their vessels were known around the world for their very fine craftsmanship. There were 3 main industries: fishing, shipping, and limestone. The tall sheds that you see on the shore contain lime kilns that were burning day and night. They burned lime to make quicklime, which was a component in mortar. They also shipped lumber and ice and granite. And we're going to end by seeing the steamship Kennebec tied up to a wharf. And now we'll travel over to the Main Street, the Rockland Main Street, to see part of that panorama. So it must have been a very busy, bustling place with the sailors and the tradesmen passing through town. That red building is commercial house. You can see horse and carriage in front, and oxen pulling a cart. There are many stores and buildings along the main street and down the side streets. They sold dry goods and groceries. There were mills and bakeries, hotels and boarding houses. That small stand in the middle of the screen, that could have been a produce stand or a fish stand. And that very last house, you can kind of make it out. It says corn and flour on the front. Come on. Beautiful brick house with a flower garden and picket fence. And that gray building looks to me like it could have been made from granite, which was very abundant in that area. And we're going to end with one of their many churches. You can see these panoramas in their entirety on display, hanging on the wall at the Farnsworth Art Museum in Rockland, Maine. And I hope that you will visit that wonderful museum if you're ever in the area. Finally, there are many people to thank. Doug Plummer, photographer, and Richard Toomey, my husband, who made the double-sided viewing box. There were many historians, this is a short list, who sent information, they answered questions, and provided general support and encouragement to me. And also the International Panorama Council for their 30 years of work on all kinds of panoramas. Thank you. So everyone, stay safe and well. I hope to see you at the next conference in person, and thank you. Bye-bye.